Section 1. The world wants your attention. Do not give it. Every single day, from the moment you open your eyes, the world is competing for your attention. Your phone vibrates. Notifications pour in. Someone tags you. Someone texts you. Someone posts something that demands a reaction. The news cycle screams at you with urgency. Social media pulls you into arguments about things that will not matter in a week. People around you gossip, complain, and drag you into dramas that have nothing to do with your goals, your growth, or your future. And most people fall for it, every single day. They give their attention freely, carelessly, to anything and anyone that demands it. They wake up and immediately check what other people are doing. They go to bed scrolling through the highlight reels of other people's lives. And somewhere between the morning scroll and the midnight feed, they forget something devastating. They forgot to pay attention to themselves. Here is the brutal truth that most people are never told. Your attention is the most valuable resource you possess. Not your money, not your time, not your talent, though all of those matter deeply. Your attention. Because wherever your attention goes, your energy follows. And wherever your energy flows, your life grows. If your attention is scattered across everyone else's world, their problems, their opinions, their drama, their achievements, then your energy is scattered too. And scattered energy cannot build anything. It cannot build a business, a body, a skill, a legacy, or a life worth remembering. It simply evaporates. The people who change the world, the ones who build something lasting, who rise against odds, who transform themselves and their circumstances, share one defining characteristic. They are ruthlessly selective about where their attention goes. They are not interested in what everyone else thinks, says, or does. They are obsessed with their own path, their own progress, their own vision. They are focused. Deeply, deliberately, almost ferociously focused. And they are largely silent about it. They do not broadcast their journey. They do not perform their ambition. They do not need an audience to validate that what they are doing is real. They work. They build. They grow. And in time, the results speak so loudly that no words were ever necessary. This is not about becoming cold or antisocial. This is not about cutting yourself off from the world. This is about understanding that before you can pour into anything else, you must first fill yourself. Before you can serve the people in your life at the highest level, you must first build yourself to that level. And that building, that deep, private, deliberate work of becoming, requires silence. It requires focus. It requires the discipline to look inward when the entire world is demanding that you look outward. This video is about exactly that. What it truly means to focus on you and stay silent, and why mastering these two principles will change everything. Section 2. What it actually means to focus on yourself. When most people hear, focus on yourself, they imagine something simple: go to the gym, eat better, meditate, practice self-care. And while those things are real and valuable, they barely scratch the surface of what genuine self-focus demands. Because truly focusing on yourself is not a weekend retreat. It is not a morning routine you post about on Instagram. It is not a season of productivity you enter and exit. It is a fundamental reorientation of your entire life, a decision to take radical, non-negotiable responsibility for who you are becoming. Focusing on yourself means doing the honest inventory. It means sitting with the uncomfortable questions that most people spend their entire lives running from. Who am I, underneath the roles I play and the masks I wear? What do I actually want? Not what my family wants for me, not what society has told me to want, but what I genuinely, deeply want. What patterns in my behavior are keeping me small? What fears are making my decisions for me? What stories am I telling myself that are not true? These are not easy questions. They require courage just to ask. But they are the questions that begin real transformation. Focusing on yourself means investing in your own development with the same seriousness and commitment that you would give to your most important professional obligation. It means reading the books, developing the skills, doing the inner work, and building the habits that compound over time into something extraordinary. Most people invest in everything else: their relationships, their entertainment, their social obligations, and give whatever is left over to their own growth. Then they wonder why they feel stuck, unfulfilled, and chronically behind the version of themselves they imagined they would be by now. Focusing on yourself also means protecting your energy with fierce intentionality. It means recognizing which environments, conversations, and people are expanding you and which ones are contracting you, and having the wisdom and the courage to choose accordingly. Not every relationship deserves equal access to your time and energy. Not every invitation deserves a yes. Not every conversation deserves your full engagement. You get to choose. You must choose. Because your energy is finite, and how you spend it is how you spend your life. The person who focuses on themselves is not selfish. They are building something. They are becoming someone. And everything they pour into themselves, they eventually pour back into the world, but at a level that would not have been possible had they scattered themselves chasing everyone else's priorities. Focus on yourself first. Everything else follows. Section 3. The Ancient Wisdom of Silence. Why the Greats Stayed Quiet. The wisest minds in human history shared a quality that modern culture has largely forgotten how to value. They were quiet. Not passive, not withdrawn, not disengaged from the world, but profoundly, powerfully, intentionally quiet. They understood something about silence that most people today have never been taught, because in a world that rewards noise, visibility, and constant self-promotion, the wisdom of silence has been buried under an avalanche of content. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome and one of the most powerful men who ever lived, kept a private journal that was never intended for public eyes. His most honest reflections, his most searching questions, his deepest philosophical wrestling, all of it was done in silence. He did not perform his inner work. He did not post his struggles for public consumption. He did not seek applause for his self-examination. He simply did the work, quietly and consistently for decades. And when he died, that private practice of silent reflection had produced a mind so disciplined, so clear, so philosophically grounded, that centuries later his journals are still studied and revered as one of the greatest works of human wisdom ever produced. Seneca wrote, "Retire into yourself as much as possible." Not as a command to become a hermit, but as wisdom about where the most important work of a human life takes place. The inner world. The quiet interior where no audience exists, where performance is impossible, where you are simply you, raw, honest, unfiltered, and where the real work of growth happens. Epictetus taught that the person who can control what they say, who can choose silence when others are choosing noise, possesses a form of mastery that most people never develop. Because speaking is easy. Reacting is easy. Filling every silence with words is easy. But choosing silence, choosing to listen rather than speak, to observe rather than perform, to build rather than broadcast, that requires discipline of a different order entirely. In Eastern philosophy, the same principle recurs. The Tao Te Ching teaches that the man of wisdom speaks rarely, and when he speaks, his words carry weight precisely because they are not diluted by constant noise. The Japanese concept of ma, the power of empty space, of pause, of silence, reflects a deep understanding that what is not said is often more powerful than what is. The Buddha's silence on certain questions was itself a teaching. Silence, in the hands of someone who has mastered it, is not emptiness. It is precision. It is power held in reserve. It is the understanding that energy not spent on noise is energy available for building. The greats stayed quiet not because they had nothing to say, but because they understood that saying less often accomplishes more. Section 4. Why you should never announce your goals. This is one of the most practically important lessons in this entire video, and it is one that goes against almost every instinct that social media has trained into modern human beings. The instinct to share. To announce. To post your new goal, your new plan, your new vision for your life. To broadcast your beginnings so that the people around you know you are serious, know you are growing, know you are on the move. It feels good to announce a goal. There is genuine dopamine in telling people what you are going to do. The responses feel supportive. The congratulations feel motivating. The likes and comments feel like proof that this thing you are planning is real and worthy. But here is what the research shows, and what centuries of wisdom before the research already knew. When you announce a goal and receive social recognition for it, your brain experiences a portion of the satisfaction of achievement without the actual achievement. The praise hits the same neural reward pathways as genuine accomplishment. And because your brain has already received partial reward, your drive to actually complete the goal weakens. You have, in effect, spent some of your motivational energy on the announcement rather than the execution. But the psychological mechanism is only part of the reason to stay silent about your goals. The deeper reason is strategic. When you announce what you are building, you invite interference. People who love you will offer unsolicited opinions about whether your goal is realistic. People who fear change will subtly, sometimes without even realizing it, discourage you, express doubt, highlight obstacles, and remind you of past failures. People who are envious of your ambition will work against you, sometimes openly, and sometimes in ways you cannot even detect. All of that energy, all of those voices, all of those opinions, all of that noise, exists in your mental environment and affects you whether you consciously choose to let it or not. The wisest builders work in silence. They do not tell people what they are working on until the work is done. They do not seek permission or validation for their vision. They do not need the crowd's approval to begin or to continue. They build in private, they struggle in private, they fail and recover in private, and then, when the work is complete, the results announce themselves. Let your work speak when it is ready. Until then, say nothing. Every word you spend explaining your plans is a word not spent executing them. Stay silent. Build. Then let what you built do all the talking that was ever necessary. Section 5. The power of minding your own business. There is a practice so simple, so ancient, so consistently endorsed by every tradition of wisdom that has ever existed, and yet so radically difficult in actual daily life, that most people never truly master it. It is the practice of minding your own business. Genuinely, completely, consistently minding your own business. This means releasing your investment in other people's choices, other people's lives, other people's journeys. It means recognizing that the energy you spend analyzing, judging, discussing, and worrying about what other people are doing is energy directly stolen from what you could be doing. Every minute you spend in someone else's business, whether it is gossip, judgment, comparison, or simply the obsessive mental habit of tracking what others have, what they are doing, and how they are doing relative to you, is a minute you are not in your own business. And your own business is where your life actually is. This is harder than it sounds because we are social creatures, deeply wired for connection, for awareness of others, for social monitoring. There is an evolutionary reason why other people's lives feel interesting and important. In a tribal environment, knowing what everyone around you was doing was literally a survival skill. But in the modern world, that wiring works against us. The same neural system that helped our ancestors navigate social hierarchies now traps us in comparison loops, compulsive social media checking, and the exhausting habit of measuring our lives against the curated performances of strangers online. The antidote is not indifference to other people. You can care deeply about the people in your life while still keeping your primary focus on your own path. The distinction is between genuine connection, real, mutual, present relationships with the people who matter to you, and the compulsive noise of tracking, comparing, and monitoring the vast sea of people whose lives have nothing to do with yours. Cut the noise. Invest in the connection. Mind your own business with the same ferocious consistency that the most successful people you have ever admired have minded theirs. Because here is the paradox. The person who minds their own business and builds something real in private is the person who eventually has something worth talking about. Focus inward first. The outward results will follow. Section 6. What silence communicates that words never can. There is a version of silence that is weakness. The silence of someone who has something to say but is afraid to say it. The silence of someone who has been diminished, who has withdrawn not from strength but from fear. That silence communicates defeat. Everyone who encounters it can feel it. And it is not what this video is about. There is another version of silence, rarer, far more powerful, and available to anyone willing to do the inner work to access it. It is the silence of someone who is completely at peace with who they are and what they are building. The silence of someone who does not need to explain themselves because they are not seeking your approval. The silence of someone who could respond to the provocation but has decided, from a place of full strength and complete choice, that the situation does not warrant their energy. That silence communicates something that words never could. It communicates mastery. Watch the most grounded people you have ever encountered. Notice how they do not fill every pause with explanation. Notice how they do not defend themselves against every accusation. Notice how they sit comfortably in a room full of people talking and saying nothing, not because they have nothing to contribute, but because they have learned to listen before they speak, and because they understand that silence is often the most powerful position available. They are not passive. They are simply economical with what they give. They understand that words spent carelessly are power spent carelessly. And they are not careless with their power. In negotiations, the person who speaks last, who can tolerate the silence while the other party feels compelled to fill it, almost always wins. In conflicts, the person who does not rise to every provocation forces the other party to eventually exhaust their aggression without result. In leadership, the person who speaks rarely but with precision commands more attention and respect than the person who speaks constantly but without weight. Learn to be comfortable in silence. Not just external silence, but the internal silence of a mind that is not constantly chattering, defending, explaining, and justifying. That internal silence is where your clearest thinking lives. It is where your best decisions are made. It is where you become the person whose presence changes the energy of a room without saying a single word. Section 7. The Comparison Trap. Why you must run your own race. Every time you compare your progress to someone else's, you are making a category error. You are measuring something that is genuinely incomparable, your unique path, timeline, starting point, circumstances, gifts, and obstacles, against someone else's equally unique combination of those things. The comparison is meaningless. Not because your goals do not matter. Not because measurement and assessment are not valuable. But because the standard you are measuring against is not designed for you, was not built for you, and cannot tell you anything useful about where you actually are or where you are actually capable of going. And yet most people do it relentlessly. They look at someone who is 5 years ahead of them and feel behind. They look at someone who achieved in 2 years what they have not achieved in 5 and feel inadequate. They look at the highlight reels of people whose full story they do not know, the failures, the support, the inheritance, the luck, the sacrifice, and compare those polished public presentations against their own messy, private, ongoing experience of trying. It is the most unfair comparison in the world. And it is also one of the most common causes of people abandoning paths that were actually working, because they could not tolerate how slow their progress felt relative to someone else's. The only comparison that is both honest and useful is the comparison between who you were yesterday and who you are today. Are you slightly more skilled? Slightly more disciplined? Slightly clearer about your direction? Slightly stronger in the areas where you were recently weak? If yes, you are on the right path. It does not matter how fast you are moving relative to anyone else. It only matters that you are moving, consistently, in the direction you have chosen. This is not an excuse for complacency. This is not a philosophical opt-out from high standards. This is the recognition that the race you are running is yours alone, with a starting line, a terrain, and a finish line that exists nowhere else in the world. No one else can run it for you. No one else's pace tells you anything meaningful about yours. Keep your eyes on your own path. Run your race. Stay in your lane. And let the scoreboard be your own growth rather than someone else's position. Section 8. The person who does the work nobody sees builds the life everybody wants. There is a profound irony at the heart of every life that looks extraordinary from the outside. The part that people see, the success, the achievement, the transformation, the result, is almost always the smallest part of the actual story. The largest part, the part that made the visible result possible, is the part that nobody saw. The 5 a.m. sessions that happened in total darkness and total silence. The hours of practice that produced no visible output for months. The days of working through confusion, self-doubt, and the quiet agony of not knowing whether any of it was working. The years of building in obscurity before anything was ready to be seen. This is the work that most people are not willing to do. Not because they lack the capacity. Most people are far more capable than they currently believe, but because they are not willing to do it without an audience, without recognition, without the validation that what they are working on is real, worthy, and going to pay off. They need external confirmation to sustain internal commitment. And that dependency on external confirmation is precisely what prevents them from doing the work long enough for the external confirmation to arrive. The philosophy of focus on you and stay silent is, at its most practical level, a philosophy of doing the work that no one sees for long enough that the results become impossible to ignore. It is the commitment to building regardless of whether anyone is watching, applauding, or even aware. It is the understanding that the invisible work is not a detour from the path, it is the path. Every hour you invest in your skills when no one is evaluating you. Every rep you complete when no one is tracking your performance. Every page you read when no one will ask you about it. Every morning you wake up early and do the work when staying in bed would have been entirely undetectable. All of it is building something. And the compound interest of that invisible work, the way consistent, unglamorous, private effort accumulates over months and years into something that looks to outsiders like sudden, inexplicable success, is one of the most powerful forces available to any human being. The only condition for accessing it is the willingness to work in the dark long enough for the light to come. Stay silent. Do the work. Trust the process that no one else can see.